Welcome back to the Forge POV. I'm Subrata Kar. Here we go beyond headlines to bring you the insights that matter for founders, investors, and tech leaders shaping the future of India and world at large. Just a few weeks ago, India came this close to an AI freeze. US export rules nearly choked our access to the chips, powering everything from LLM to fraud detection. We got lucky. But next time, we might not be. Today, we are diving into a question that could define India's tech destiny. Will India own its $150 billion chip future or continue renting its place in the AI revolution? And by own, I mean gaining strategic control, not cutting ties with global ecosystem, but reducing our risks. You see, startups face higher costs, longer waits, even being forced to send sensitive data overseas to train models. Even if you're using AWS or Google Cloud, their infrastructure runs on same NVIDIA GPUs under export control. Tighten that supply, and you could lose access altogether. The risk isn't abstract. It hits every founder, every researcher, and every ambitious product. And then overnight, the Trump administration reversed course, lifting the caps just before they became the law. So, why this U-turn? Well, insiders said it was a mix of India's diplomatic lobbying, US national security strategy, and pressure from chipmakers like NVIDIA, who didn't want to lose India's fast growing market. You see, India is too big to blacklist, but not yet trusted enough to join the top tier. Think of US allied nations like Japan or South Korea who get priority access to advanced chips. And that near miss wasn't just crisis averted, it was a wake up call. A signal that India's AI strategy still hinges on foreign fabs and their foreign policy. And that's the real risks. And that is why this episode matters today. Because the choices we make in these next few years could define whether India becomes global AI power or remains a downstream user. This isn't just about 2025, it is about the next decade. Meanwhile, countries from China to Saudi Arabia are stockpiling GPU like oil, and India stands at crossroads. Analysts project that India's chip market could hit 64 to $150 billion by 2030, with AI driving the high end. So there is, of course, huge potential. The choices we make now on manufacturing, partnerships, and digital sovereignty will shape not just India's future, but global tech landscape. So in this episode, I will explore the following: why access to advanced chips is make or break for India's AI dreams, how US China rivalry, export control, and chip shortages create risks and openings, and a practical playbook to spot opportunities, build smart, and win as silicon chessboard shifts that you don't want to miss. Because in the global AI race, compute isn't just capacity, it's the currency. And right now, India's chips are on the table. So let's get started. Let me try and make this real for you. You are a founder in Bangalore. You have raised your seed, build your machine learning team, and you are finally ready to fine tune your large language model. Suddenly, AWS says no GPU clusters available, no ETA. Why? Because until just few days ago, India was staring at a hard cap only 50,000 top tier GPUs a year, thanks to new US export rules. For most startups, that meant a real risk, getting deprioritized, wetlisted, or simply missing out on the compute you need. Even though that cap just got lifted, is a wake up call. The geopolitics of chips aren't just headlines, they can land right on your product roadmap overnight. Back in episode 42, we unpacked how US China tech rivalry is redrawing the global map, sparked by Trump's tariff and chip sanctions, with Taiwan, TSMC caught in the crossfire. If you haven't got a chance to listen to that episode 42, do check it out. The links are in the description below. Now, the same AI Cold War is hitting Indian founders square in their product roadmap. Let's zoom out for a moment. In the AI age, the chips are power. You see, the global AI race is all about who controls the hardware. And three companies hold the keys. NVIDIA designs nearly 80% of the AI accelerator market. TSMC, which is Power Chip Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation in Taiwan, builds over 50% of the world's advanced chips, including NVIDIA's, and ASML, Advanced Semiconductor Material Lithography, in the Netherlands makes the EUV lithography machines that print the circuits on the chips. Now, this is a choke point, geopolitically fragile. So, as the US, China, EU build rival AI bloc, chip policy is weaponized. Export controls are digital foreign policy. The US tiered system almost squeezed India, Israel, and Singapore into tier 2, not blocked, but capped. Why? To slow down China and rivals while securing US dominance. The fallout would have been fractured supply chain where Indian companies get squeezed. Meanwhile, the demand is skyrocketing. Training a model like GPT-4 cost over $100 million in hardware and power alone. In March 2025, TSMC production delays spiked the GPU prices by 20%, hitting Indian startups. Meanwhile, China, the US, the Saudi Arabia are hoarding GPU, stockpiling them like oil barrels, because whoever controls the chips controls the AI future. And for India, that's a wake up call. Why is that? Because India is a user nation. We import 95% of our chips. We rent compute and we rely on foreign fabs. So when US or China sneezes, India catches cold. But here is the good news. And the good news is, even as we are importing GPUs, we have seen a wave of recent announcement for some of the world's largest AI-ready data centers. Think Control S, planned 500 megawatt AI data centers right here in Hyderabad. Reliance Jio's GPU as a service cloud, and major projects from Adani Connects, Google, SIFI, and Iota All, and others racing to make India a hyperscale compute hub. And these aren't just ideas, they're running into real infrastructure with advanced features like liquid cooling racks for AI workloads. Yes, we don't make the chips yet, but we are building the foundation to host and train on them at scale. And that's the progress. But India can't stay passive player forever. That means building resilience, using global tech where we must, but creating our own infra where we can. Up next, India's bold move to flip the script from Dholera chip fab and Micron Gujarat plant to a $9.2 billion government semiconductor push. The real question for us, can we build the tech muscle to power India first before we dream of leading the world? Here is the hard truth though. We are not just renting chips, we are renting leverage. Let's break it down. See you on the other side. Stay with me. Hey everyone, quick pause here. I have noticed that a lot of you watch the show but haven't subscribed yet. If you're finding this valuable, it would mean a lot if you hit the subscribe, like, and maybe even share it with a friend. It really helps me keep bringing you this kind of real, no fluff content. Thank you so much. Now let's dive right back into it. Picture this. It's 6:45 a.m. in Sanand, Gujarat. A Micron project manager walks the dusty perimeter of a half-built factory. Cranes swing steel beams into places. At a tense site meeting, he goes, if that power substation isn't ready by next quarter, then we are dead in the water. That's the real world pressure behind India's chip ambition. For decades, India has imported semiconductors, rented compute power, and written the software that powers the global systems, yet almost never touched the hardware that makes AI computing possible. Today, that's beginning to change. India is launching a renewed serious bid to enter global semiconductor supply chain. First, Tata Group and Power Chip Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation (PSMC) is building India's first commercial chip fab in Dholera, Gujarat for $11 billion. These won't be the cutting edge chips that go into your iPhone and iPads or AI servers. They will be mature 28 nanometer chips for cars, appliances, grids, and industrial automation. A huge market. Second, Micron Technology US, memory chip giant, is building $2.75 billion advanced assembly testing, marketing, and packaging plant in Sanand, Gujarat. This is where chips are finalized. It is not glamorous, but it's critical. And the Indian government is all in. New Delhi has committed $9.2 billion in subsidies, infrastructure, investments, import duty waivers. Fabs can get up to 50% of their cost covered. It is also slashing the red tape and faster clearance, plug and play industrial parks. But building a fab isn't just concrete and clean air conditioned rooms. It's about an ecosystem. You see, the chips need specialized materials, semiconductor grade silicons, rare gases, and ultra pure water. They also need $200 million lithography machines, which etch chip designs. Only one company makes the best in the world, and that is ASML in Netherlands. India needs this entire supply chain. Let's be honest. Where are India's strengths? A large pool of skilled engineers, for sure, world class software talent, and platforms like Aadhaar, UPI, and CoWIN showing India can build digital systems at billion person scale. Our weakness, India still lacks homegrown chip intellectual property, specialized design tools, and secure access to critical raw materials. We still remain heavily dependent on foreign suppliers for core components. Just last year, two major projects, Vedanta Foxconn and ISMC Tower Semiconductors, collapsed. Why? Because of funding gaps and stalled technology transfers. And that's a warning. Promises don't build chips, robust supply chains do. But here is a number that most people miss. A single advanced chip fab can draw up to 100 megawatts of power, enough to light up a small city. Control S, the new data center right here in Hyderabad, has about 500 megawatts. That's nearly as much as the entire city of Chandigarh. And by 2030, India's data centers alone will need at least 40 terawatts hour of electricity every year, more than some states consume today. Here is the catch. Over 70% of our grid still run on coal. Even a brief power cut can cost a fab millions. For global players like TSMC or Micron, uninterrupted clean power isn't just nice to have feature, it's a deal breaker. So when we talk about building chip ecosystem, It is not just about silicon or subsidies, it's about energy. Question is, can India deliver massive, reliable, affordable power at scale? Let's now talk about the opportunity. With the US and EU diversifying away from China, India could become a trusted democratic chip hub that needs predictability and not potential. And the threat? Well, if we don't act fast and fix those ecosystem gaps, raw materials, tools, train operators, we will be a low margin assembly line and not chip superpower. You see, chips are more than technology. They are a strategic and economic power. So will India's $9.2 billion semiconductor push let us rewrite the game, or are we playing someone else's game? What's your bet? Can India deliver? Share your thoughts with me. Hashtag Forge POV. Can we build tech muscle to power India's first before we dream of leading the world? That's about taking strategic steps, building on global tech while creating our own foundation. Let's dig deeper next. Manufacturing is the start, but owning the stack from chips to AI to deployment delivers real power. Stay with me. All right, so we talked about chips, but let's be real. Silicon alone doesn't make you an AI power, because if India wants to lead, not just follow, we need a full stack approach. And right now, we are building tall, but on someone else's silicon. You see, most of our AI efforts still ride on platforms built by others, like Meta's Llama or OpenAI GPT, Google's Gemini. Powerful? Sure. But here's the catch, they're fully American. That means if someone flicks a policy switch in Washington or tweaks an API limit, India's AI momentum could hit a wall. Just like that. And this isn't fear mongering. It has almost happened with the chip export rule. Remember? So here's the thing, as long as we are overly reliant on imported silicon, we are still renting the foundation of our AI stack. Sovereignty doesn't start with models, it starts with gaining more control over our chip supply. Even if we have to build strategic partnerships and local capacity alongside global tech. So the real question becomes, can we build our own AI stack from the ground up, meaning with the resilience to control our future on terms that work for India? Let me walk you through what's already in motion. So we've got promising language models, Sarvam AI, Bharat GPT, Vani. They are not trying to outcompete OpenAI. No, they are training leaner models tuned to Indian languages, grounded in our contexts. We got Bhashini, the Language Corpus Project, training voice AI on Hindi, Bengali, Tamil, you name it. Then we got DataGov, ONDC, CoWIN, UPI. You name the data set, we are sitting on it. So that combination, data, population scale platforms, and local problems to solve, is a rare advantage. When you think about it, few countries can actually match this opportunity, making India uniquely positioned to lead AI innovation. But here is where we hit a wall: compute. Even the smartest model needs hardware to run, and India still depends on imported chips, GPUs, memory, inference servers, all of it. So yeah, we are building AI stack, but the foundation, it is borrowed and fragile. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a farmer in Bihar holding a dusty Android phone. He speaks into the voice assistant that sounds like his brother, not Alexa. It understands his dialect, responds with empathy, runs on cheap edge device, not cloud. Now that's the vision. Not AI on top 1%, but AI that works offline in local languages, built on Indian models, running on local infra. And here is why this matters for founders and investors. This isn't just about inclusion, it's about scale. India has already surpassed 950 million internet users in 2025, with around half, over 510 million, from rural areas. WhatsApp alone reaches 860 million users nationwide, showing the massive potential for digital solutions. As internet penetration continues to grow, the next wave of innovation will come from bringing AI to every corner of the country, including rural and low connectivity regions. A voice assistant built for India's realities could tap into $500 million market by 2030, driven by API subscriptions or transaction fee. But to make that happen, we need more than just models. We need open source tooling, inference frameworks that run on basic hardware, developers kit for startups, not just research labs. And here's the thing, this isn't just a government job. India AI mission is a good start, but it is the founders, the engineers in tier 2 cities, they are the ones who will make it real. Imagine India partnering with global leaders like Nvidia and TSMC, not just importing chips, but co designing AI accelerators for India's unique needs: low power, offline, rural ready. With initiatives like India AI Mission and DPI ecosystem already driving the demand, this could unlock $1 billion market for India specific hardware, a win for global players while startups build IP and resilience at home. That's the kind of collaboration can fast track our AI stack, combining global expertise with India's scale and innovation. So, where do we go from here? Well, India's stack isn't just a technical roadmap, it's sovereignty question. Because if we don't own the layers, we don't own the future. Now, let me be clear. Owning the layer doesn't mean cutting ties with the global tech. It means building resilience so a policy switch overseas doesn't derail our progress. That is why I believe our real opportunity isn't to build another GPT. It is to build what works for us on infra we can trust at a price the country can afford. Now let's get practical. In the next section, we will map the real world opportunities where the picks and shovels lie for founders, builders, and investors navigating this new AI terrain. Stay tuned. If you have been with me through this episode, you know India's AI future hinges on building our own stack, not just borrowing someone else's. But just let's be clear, that doesn't mean rejecting global tech. It means reducing our risks and building where India has an edge. Now, let's get into the action plan. If you are jumping in here, welcome. This is where it gets practical. I'm breaking down three zones where founders and investors can create massive value in India's AI ecosystem. So let's dive in. Let's talk about Zone 1, infrastructure enablers. I call it the picks and the shovels for India's 150 billion chip boom. Don't build the empire. Sell the picks and the shovels. We don't need 10 more open AIs. But we absolutely need the likes of Snowflakes or Twilio of India's AI stack. Tools that empower every builder in the ecosystem. And that starts with infrastructure. So here is what I'm seeing. Startups like Utho or Thermistans creating cloud compute and cooling solutions optimized for India's rural power grids, low voltage, high heat, and real instability. Bhubaneswar and Hyderabad based teams working on chip testing tools, thermal monitoring, Indic language data cleaners, tuned to real world noise in Tamil, Bhojpuri, Assamese. A startup building model compression API for edge inference. That's not just tooling, that's a moat. Now think about like an investor. India's semiconductor market could cross $150 billion by 2030. And we are still in phase zero. So build the dev tool stack now before Dolera goes live, and you will have the first mover advantage. A startup here could become a $500 million company in 5 years with potential exits to hyperscalers like AWS or Azure India. Why not? For example, a model compression APIs could enable offline AI for over 500 million rural users, generating tens of millions in annual recurring revenue. Even if just a fraction of that 100,000 plus startups and the rapidly growing base of ONDC merchants subscribe at $40 a year, that's the kind of 5x returns early investors are chasing. But differentiation matters. You will need real IP moat like patented cooling tech for rural grids to stay ahead. India isn't late. We are early. The build out has just begun. So if I were a founder today, I would ask, what's the AWS for tier 2 edge compute? Who's building the data dog for India's GPU farms? Can I be the NVIDIA dev kit for India made chips with proprietary tech to lock in the ecosystem? Because factories are coming and we will need 10x tools. Remember the 1800 gold rush? Who made the maximum money? Not the miners, but the people who sold tools to the miners. That's your blueprint. Build the tools, win the boom. Let's talk about Zone 2, AI native apps for DPI, which can potentially unlock $1 billion market for India's rural and underserved. Let's talk about India's unfair advantage for a second. Our digital public infrastructure, Aadhaar, UPI, ONDC, CoWIN, DigiLocker. It is not just bunch of apps. It's a backbone for billion-person AI market. UPI alone, over 50% of world's digital transaction by volume, 15 billion a month and still climbing. And here is where it gets really exciting for founders and investors. AI co-pilots, not just chatbots, but real digital assistants built for India in our languages, on our rails. So picture this, a farmer in Bihar filing a land grievance in Santali just by talking to his phone. A shopkeeper in Maharashtra getting maternity benefits on WhatsApp in Marathi, not English. Or a fraud detection co pilot scanning billions of UPI transactions every month, catching scams before they happen. And it is not just about inclusions. This is a massive SaaS opportunity. Let's do the math. Even if 100,000 ONDC merchants use AI Copilot for $6 a month, that's $7 million in annual recurring revenue. As ONDC scales to 5 million merchants, this could grow potentially easily, hitting the $1 billion market over time. But here's the thing, we don't just need one Copilot, we need dozens, each trained for a sector, state, a use case. UPI fraud detection, that's a $1 billion recurring API play right there. Government tech copilots for benefits or grievance, that's another massive SaaS wedge, and it could go global. Think Zoho, but for public service. So if I were building today, I would start with the private sector wedge, maybe microfinance or health insurance co-pilots for ONDC sellers. Prove revenue first, then scale to government contracts. That way, you are not at the mercy of policy changes. And to reach rural and underserved users, leverage WhatsApp. 860 million Indians are already on it. And voice interface. Make it as simple as a phone call, and you bridge the digital literacy overnight. So here is my challenge to you. What's India's Stripe for rural finance? What's the LangChain for Bhashini? What co-pilots will ONDC sellers need at scale? Because this isn't just about AI in India. It is about India native AI built on our rails for our people. Now let's talk about Zone 3. Specialized language models, often called SLMs, the $100 million vertical AI play. In episode 32, I said it plain. India doesn't need a God model as far as I'm concerned. We need 100 specialized co-pilots, SLMs, not LLMs. And here is what I mean. A healthcare triage model for tier 2 clinic, a compliance co-pilot for navigating GST, local taxes, and regulatory reforms, an agri assistant that factors in monsoon patterns, subsidy rules, crop prices for India's 120 plus million farmers. And these aren't moonshots. These models don't cost $100 million to train. They cost $1 to $5 million. And that's well within the reach for many early stage Indian VCs. Just look at Sarvam AI's 10 million raise or Kisan AI's agri platform. They are not chasing OpenAI. They are building the India stack, sector by sector. And here's the thing, compute is still a bottleneck. India just has 18,600 high performance GPU versus China's 50,000. And the play? Work with India's new generation of data centers. Many are rapidly adding GPU muscle. So you can actually train and deploy your models right here at home. For example, a single SLM for rural healthcare could serve 50 million users, generating 50 million annually at $1 per user per year, a high margin play with global potential. From an investor perspective, each SLM vertical could be a $100 million standalone business. But build a platform that trains and deploy these across sectors. That's a $500 million play with potential exit to B2B SaaS giants or big tech expanding in India. Own the data, lock in the domain expertise, and keep your inference stack optimized for low bandwidth. That's your moat. So I would ask, who's building the GitHub Copilot not for coders, but for Indian doctors, paralegals, field agents? Who's fine tuning SLM for Indian law, farming, or banking, and doing it on open source rails we control? Because that's where VC maths meets the public sector scale. So before we wrap up, a quick ask. If this episode gave you a fresh perspective, please like, subscribe, and share within your network. That's the best way to support the Forge POV and help these bold conversation reach more builders. And here is my Forge POV. Don't chase headlines. Chase strategic gaps. And if you are a founder, build where India has an edge, a real need, and user base hungry for solutions. If you're an investor, back the hard problems. It's early now, but that won't last. And if you had $5 million and 12 months, where would you place your bet? Infra tools for a $150 billion chip market? DPI co-pilots for India's rural and underserved? Or SLM powering $100 million verticals? Think about it. And finally, if this episode sparked a new idea, share your take with hashtag ForgePOV. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, keep forging ahead, and bye for now.